This is Lord Thaddeus Cray, and today we're going to be talking about something that's a little bit different. I've talked of cryptids that, of course, fly and are mainly land-based. I've talked about those that pretty much want to seduce you, drink your blood. I've talked about the Bigfoot. I've talked about the Dogman, werewolves. You name it. I've pretty much run across it, and of course, a few biblical beings. But this is going to be a little different. This is going to be about water-based cryptids. Mainly about mermaids, at least for this one video. And I'm going to be honest with you, where to begin on this? There are so many legends and myths and stories related to these creatures. I'm going to simply be running a few different legends, as well as, of course, a few of my theories across. And I'm going to let you guys decide where to go with that. It's up to you to think for yourself and really figure out where these creatures come from. Because honestly, you know as much as I do, and that's not much, if you get my drift. But I do try to keep an open mind on this. So, what are mermaids? What is it that we know of them? Of course, sometimes they're called sirens, different things. What I can tell you is this. It is obviously known that they are very seductive. Of course, they're aquatic. Usually, of course, the classic image of one would be like Ariel, the Little Mermaid. Pretty much the top part, beautiful woman, the other part, fish down below. Or some type of other aquatic creature. The thing is, most of the stories involving mermaids are not, some hottie trying to, seduce a sailor and take his pants off. No, they want to do a little bit more than that. They're not after a prince to rescue them from their troubles. No, they're after dinner. Just to be straight with you, you have the sirens of Greek mythology. These ladies would they would sing long and loud. The tune which they would sing was so beautiful, it would ensnare a man's mind, the sailors. And of course, these poor bastards, they'd be drawn inland, and their massive ships or vessel would run across the rocks, and pretty much, of course, this thing sinks, and you have these poor fools trying to get onto land because, they can't swim too great. And yeah, you got these lovely creatures waiting for them, right there in the water. They snatch them up, and yeah, that was a wrap. Of course, there's also legends of these things also needing men to help reproduce, or other types of awful ensnarement. I mean, it's crazy stuff, just to be honest with you. And that's just a few of the legends. I'm going to run across a small list here, which I found, of different types of mer creature. Of course, there's different names for them. There's so many names for these things. But what is known is that they are, it seems to almost be a certain trend. Basically beautiful, but that beauty is an illusion, and there's actually something that is just awful. That pretty much wants you on a dinner plate. I mean, just either that or enslavement or something really frightening. The first one I'm going to run across is actually a more open view, than you might think. It's called the Ningyo, or it's pronounced or spelled Ningyo, Ningyo or something. I don't know. But this version of the mermaid is basically butt ugly. It is from Japan, and that is a creature that is a monster that has a vaguely humanoid face. And yeah, just pretty much a terrifying creature. Basically a giant fish with a human face, like I said. Maybe a monkey's mouth, maybe some horns in there, razor sharp teeth. But here's the catch on that. If you catch one of these creatures and you actually eat it, you will actually be eternally young and beautiful yourself. How's that for a contrast, right? And of course, you have the Selkie, and this one I'm fairly familiar with. I've seen movies, and it's also fascinating. These ones are usually not so awful. They are women or men that pretty much spend most of their lives as seals. And they come on land sometimes, and they will shed that seal skin, and underneath is a human being. And what they will do is they exit that skin. They usually keep it someplace that is secure, so that way when it's time for them to go back into the water and resume their lives, they basically go back into that skin, they become seals again, they head on back to the ocean. Now, a smart man, according to legend, or woman, would see that skin, they take an opportunity. They catch, they basically snatch it, and they keep it to themselves. Now, of course, the Selkie is pretty desperate to get that skin back. So what happens? They become enslaved, ironically, to the human being that is in possession of that skin. And sometimes there's even some love stories connected to this. That, to me, is, well, it's creepy, but at the same time it's very intriguing, to say the least. There are also other ones that sometimes sometimes it's voluntary. It's very strange. But in the end, usually the Selkie would pretty much find its skin. Usually, many times, according to these old stories. And pretty much, they may even fall in love with the human that had taken the skin. But in the end, they find it, and of course, they flee back to the ocean. Because it's like being held prisoner. I can't really blame a creature like that for doing what it needed to do to escape. And that's just something I think is in common with all sentient beings. You actually have a creature called the Mommy Wata. And this thing comes from Africa. This is... it's weird. It's sometimes described as a mermaid, or sometimes a snake charmer, which I don't really understand. I mean, I understand, the legends, not the legends, but the pictures of... I've seen photos, of course, folks in India charming a cobra with a flute or whatever. I mean, I'm not really sure. But it's very interesting. Apparently, when, the slave trade was going down, this legend even made its way to here in the United States. It's very interesting. Supposedly, it sometimes can take human form, but it's never fully human. It's kind of like a fertility goddess, which is weird, but actually kind of cool. You also have a few others. I'm going to go ahead and just ring off more of the familiar ones. The Marrow. This is interesting. I've heard of this. I'm actually somewhat familiar with this. I've read actually a couple of books based on this, which is very cool. It's called a Marrow, and this basically, these are a type of, I think, women or men. The women are beautiful. The men are basically awful. They look like something like the creature from the Black Lagoon, and they're awful, like I said, just... they're so awful that pretty much the women many times will flee to the land to have relations with men, human men. But either way, one thing is known is that they wear a hat, and this allows them to breathe underwater. The thing is, of course, when a person snatches that hat or they lose it, they're stuck on land. And that's just how it is. Of course, there's been stories of relationships, families started, and naturally they want to return to the ocean, and they leave their family, or bring them with them. But usually they're left behind. It's very interesting, to say the least. Rasalka, this is another one. This is from Russia. And this is basically a water nymph. Very, very different. Supposedly, they're supposedly benevolent, but also at the same time, oh wow, yeah, I remember this one. Supposedly, they are actually the reincarnated or reborn spirits of girls who drowned in water, and pretty much they are trapped eternally in that state of being around the water. Sometimes they will drown men who have offended them, and sometimes they'll seduce men who they like. It's just really strange. Supposedly, basically, they're like ghost women with real long hair, and they can use that hair sometimes to restrain their victims. Different, I'll give it that. This is simply a short video based on different things, of course, I have read when it comes to these creatures. And, well, of course, you guys, I've been told you guys like to hear my theories, so I'm going to go ahead and put that out there. I do believe that these creatures could exist, and I believe they've been around a long time. Legends are based on fact. Never forget that. So there's something going on with there, whether they were experimented on and released into the wild by some ancient culture with technology that we can't comprehend, or maybe simply they're a natural alteration from humanity that went off to live in the ocean. You never know. I mean, these creatures, there's so many legends, of course. You know, you have, of course, the sea-dwelling type. You have the type that love fresh water. Sometimes some of them even dwell in swamps. You can't really, it's impossible to know. It's almost like with the Bigfoot. I personally, like I told you, believe that there is definitely a evolution sideways. You know, I mean, it's not like Darwin. Okay, I believe very firmly God put all to evolve means to change. You got to understand that. So I don't believe necessarily we came from monkeys. Okay, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is human beings have evolved in different ways in order to fit their environment. That is proven in nature. And anyone else who says otherwise, well, the science proves for itself. I mean, you have your opinion, and you kind of have the fact that's right in front of your eyes. I believe mermaids and similar types of creatures, Selkies, Marrows, all this stuff. I mean, I think that those types of creatures are simply beings that have evolved into something like us, but not, if you get my drift. Now, I do believe some, like the Japanese monster that I, kind of said at the beginning of this video, those things I do believe may have been experimented on. Something like that is just not, it's not normal. It's also a possibility that there may be a creature that's not even close to human, but maybe evolved to look somewhat humanoid in order to snare prey. Who knows? I mean, it's fascinating. But in the idea of where these creatures come from is the possibilities are endless. That's all I know to say about that, man. I also have some news for you guys. I'm going to very soon be releasing one of my first horror videos. It's a story that I myself have come up with. And once I'm done with the final editing, I'll be releasing it. It could be a couple of weeks, might be a couple of months, but I think it's going to be closer to the couple of weeks part. I can't promise anything, but it should. I think you guys will enjoy it. Of course, you guys know what I do, and the fact is, I'm always looking for people who have had cryptid experiences or supernatural experiences. I am, of course, the producer for the Dogman Cam's radio show, as well as, of course, the Dogman Cam show is hosted by John Bell. And of course, you guys know also that I'm the producer for Chasing the Truth with Sean Graham. He's the one who hosts that. The Dogman Cam show is for the cryptids. The Chasing the Truth is for, of course, more of the supernatural, paranormal things. So if you've had any experience with either Bigfoot, Dogman, anything beyond that, hit me up when it comes to cryptids, or also hit me up if you've had a paranormal experience. Believe me, I would love to hear it. Believe me, I would love to hear some good stories. I've heard some that are a little larger than life. For the most part, the people I've had are very straightforward, and I enjoy hearing these stories. And I enjoy giving people the opportunity to have their story told or shared. They get the opportunity to tell it themselves. You guys already know about the shows and how they're run, so hit me up. Hit me up in the comment section, or you can contact me at wesvik, WESVSEK, at dogmancams.com. Hit me up, man. Believe me, I'll make sure your stuff gets heard and I'll put it out there. You guys be blessed, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care.